All right, guys, what is up? And welcome to this training. There's the camera. Welcome to this training. We are going to be talking today about how we can make a bunch of background noise. Sorry about that. How we can turn chaos and all the chaotic crap that happens to us into confidence, and how we can build a rhythm to do that despite what seems like constant chaos. First, we're going to talk about why it's important. Like, why does this matter, right? We have enough chaos in our lives. Why do we need to worry about managing more? Then we're going to talk about some of the common issues that people run into when trying to do this. Like, this isn't an easy thing to do, to try to make sense of chaos, right? So we have to uncover the real reason why people do this, and then and why it's a problem and how it's a problem. And finally, we have to figure out what to do about it. How do we actually fix this problem, right? I'll do that by introducing a couple of highlights, as well as then introducing a proven framework that we use inside of energy economics, and that has proven to be incredibly successful for anybody who uses it as over time. Oh, I still have this ticker going at the bottom here. So many buttons to click. So next, I'm going to also talk to you about how to get a live demonstration of these tools and these practices and this framework. And if you're on Facebook, you may see the pinned comment or post or whatever that says, join a one-on-one with me. So if at any point you want to dig in to exactly how this stuff can affect you and exactly what we can do about it, then stay tuned, because we're going to get into that. So in order to figure out how to turn chaos into confidence, first we have to have a sense of what chaos really is. Like, for one person's chaos is another person's calm composure, right? So, like, what is chaos, and why does it come up for us? And then we have to talk about, in order to really understand this, we have to get into some of the what is confidence, right? And some of the gaps there. And then we're going to talk about how to bridge them. So look, here's the thing. Chaos is completely disempowering. If I feel like things are in chaos, I'm not empowered. And it can result in having absolutely no confidence if left unattended to. So understanding, being able to navigate and being able to control chaos is probably the single biggest thing that you can do in order to more effectively manage your life have more confidence, and be able to, right? So the issue with this is that chaos is the seed of change. We cannot encounter any we cannot have any change in our lives. We can't encounter any answer to any question that prompts an exploration without chaos. So I'll give some examples to this as we move through, but think about it. Any new thing that you have learned, or any new um, anything that's come about for you, has started with confusion. So this isn't about eliminating chaos. This is about managing chaos. And this comes with a bunch of questions, including these, right? I want you, if you guys are watching this live, put live in the chat. If you're watching the replay, put replay in the chat so I know who's who. But also, if any of these questions that I'm about to ask really hit home, I want to know about that too. So I want to know how you're managing your life right now despite all the chaos. Like, what's your process? How do you figure out what to do every day? I want to know if the distractions that come up, the things that pop up, the things that seem unexpected or unplanned, or things that are hard to manage for you, are they are those the things that seem like chaos? Right? Do those, excuse me, geez, do those distractions seem chaotic to you? I want to know if the urgent needs that you have or that you have to tend to seem out of control. I also want to know, for these things that you can't seem to get control over, that are in your life, the things that the whole reason you're here is because I'm betting you have some chaos in your life, right? So, with consideration to that chaos, whatever that is it urgency? Do the urgent needs, do the things that need your urgent attention seem out of control? Like something's popping up all the time and something is difficult to manage all of the time? And if so, we're going to talk about that too. And here's the big one. Does feeling like it's possible to even live the life that you want rather than settling for what you feel capable of feel stressful or overwhelming or any of that stuff? And if it does, you're in the right place. So tell me what seems chaotic in your life to you in the chat, and we'll address that as we go through. But regardless of what you put, regardless of the issue, chances are, if you're here, it's because there's some aspect of your life that feels out of control to some degree. And if that's true, chances are you generally don't feel very confident about that thing because, well, we'll get into why. But this lack of confidence in relationship to things that you perceive as chaotic is absolutely a huge problem. It is a big, big problem. And the reason why is because we are leaving our life on the table because we don't know how to manage chaos. How might your life actually change if you had control over this area of it? If you knew that something chaotic happened, and not only would you be able to handle it, but you'd be able to handle it and be in a better position than you were to start with. How could things be different if you felt like things were going exactly as they needed to when chaos arose? And if you had complete control over everything that you found chaotic, what would your life actually be like? Would it be chaos? Think about this for a minute. Like, seriously. So, again, what are some things in your life that feel chaotic that you want to get control over? Let me know in the chat. I keep asking this because the ability to get control over that chaos is exactly the potential that you're giving up by not knowing how to manage it. And having to settle for less than that is precisely why you don't feel confident. Now, there is a way to find order in what seems like completely unpredictable and completely meaningless noise, and that's what we're going to focus on. So let's talk about some of the problems to managing chaos and why it seems like uh, and why it seems like um, whatever. I'm trying to get somebody on here for later on in the call, but Uh, yeah. So why it seems like everything's meaningless and everything is unpredictable. So, what is the first big issue? One is that we sabotage other more important things. We sabotage other more important things by not being able to manage chaos. Working out a few tech problems, guys. Hang tight. Okay. We sabotage other more important things by choosing to not know or not be able to know how to manage chaos. And what is that? Why is that? Because when we have some sort of opinion or belief, um, it causes a bit of a blind spot. And that blind spot is what causes the chaos. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So, generally, when something chaotic happens, whenever that happens, we tend to be emotionally, mentally, and maybe even energetically wiped out, right? If there's a bunch of new stuff that we don't know or that we can't figure out or that we need to navigate, um, we end up in a state where we get burnt out. It's what happens. So so we end up burnt out because of the thing that we don't know how to manage. Maybe it feels though like we're just too busy and there's no room for anything new. Maybe we're just busy all of the time. And anything new that the problem with that is that anything new that might come our way, we can't actualize the potential of. We can't see the potential of. We can't connect to because we don't have any room. So we're literally saying no to things that might help us because we don't know how to deal with that influx, right? So that's one of the big issues is that we we end up burnt out, unable to take in new information, even if that information could be the thing that saves us. For instance, if it was the time when cars were first invented and we were so sick and so sore and had sprained ankles and had to nurse ourselves because our feet were so busted up from walking 100 miles a day, we couldn't even think of using a vehicle, even though a vehicle would likely solve that problem. So that's the first thing. If we don't know how to manage chaos, we sabotage the stuff that really helps. Our brains also really want distraction. So we tend to react. If we're focused on something and something new comes in and we don't know how to discern or manage that effectively, we tend to react. So, um, okay. So we tend to react. And in that reaction, we're taking everything as if it has equal importance, which tends to mean that we aren't effectively triaging what's going on. We're using what's coming up as a distraction, and we're using what's coming up as a way to take us from whatever it is that we're focused on. Why? Because our brain wants distractions, right? We weren't designed to be hyper focused or deep diving into stuff 24/7, despite the pressures that we have, not even 12 hours a day, not even six, really. And focus in and of itself can cause stress. So we're constantly seeking something else to grab onto to give us focus. So if we don't know how to manage chaos, that something else will just seem like it's all the same stuff, right? Kind of continuing from that, our brains require both dopamine and change. So it's not just that we need to feel like we have a sense of distraction or feel successful from focusing. We also have a situation where our brains require a sense of focus, but also require a sense of dopamine. And that's where rhythm comes in. We're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. So that's the surface level issues. Now, one level deeper than that, which is the core issue for all of this, is that our beliefs, what we believe about the world or how time works or how energy works, what our beliefs are about that world and about what's available to us or what it means to be distracted or to have a random errant sound come into our awareness, or what it means to focus, or what it means to, even for me to be here presenting this to you. Because of our beliefs, and some beliefs are really deep down, some are right on the surface. Like, I believe that doing these videos is going to not only help people, but also obviously help more people have real solutions in the world. And that's just a belief. We'll see what happens. But with that belief, that is what propels me to do the videos. It's what propels me to format them a certain way. It's what, all of that is formed by that belief. All of us have beliefs that we're hooked into. And when we believe something, we tend to fixate on that belief, focus on the aspects of it, which is exactly the intention behind having one. But it also excludes a bunch of information that may also be helpful. So our beliefs blind us, B-L-I-N-D, they blind us to things that are outside of them. And that's a survival mechanism. Like, we can only control that to a point, right? But this can also be beneficial. If we're believing that focusing on something is really going to get us the results, and obviously when we're doing stuff, we have to be able to focus, then we can shut off everything else, or at least try to, and focus on that one thing. But here's the problem, is when something else like chaos comes into our awareness, that belief that we need to focus on one thing in order to get anything done is in complete contradiction to the chaos that just came into our world. And so that's where the stress comes from. Our beliefs not only direct us, but also can be to our detriment if we don't have ways to cope with that contrast. So when we start to combine these problems, when we start to combine the sabotage, when we start to combine our distractions that our brain requires, the dopamine that our brain requires, the focus that our brain requires, and the fact that we have to, as human beings, we have beliefs, and those beliefs drive our behavior, and we can change them with intention, and we can change them with embodiment. But ultimately, at any given point, we have beliefs that drive our behavior. Like, some people wouldn't be taking a pause to drink a sip of tea right now because they would be afraid that the gap would be a problem. I don't believe that. So everything we do, driven by beliefs, those beliefs drive us. We need to be in control of them, and we need to know how to navigate when there is contrast. So using the system that I'm about to discuss will not only help you do that, but over time, we'll start to notice that these feelings of frustration or anger or whatever comes up for you during chaos dissipates, because we will begin over time to get more control. So how do we actually fix this problem? Well, being confident, right? Being able to be confident despite chaos is the difference between being able to stay focused despite sounds and noises and other things and feel distracted. It's the difference between feeling ultimately useless and feeling completely capable, between feeling strong, like you can endure things, or feeling weak, maybe even feeling depressed versus excited, right? It's the tone that you carry, right? If you don't know how to manage chaos, everything that is in conflict with your beliefs, even if it's the seed of something better, is stressful. So let's break this down, right? We already know, I've already talked about everything we do, think, and experience is driven by our beliefs. And these beliefs are like a filter to what's real. If I were to hold up a filter on this camera, Or if I were to activate a digital filter, it would cut out certain things and turn on other things, right? Like if I put a brown filter over the lens, my sweater here would look black, right? So everything about what we do is seen through a filter called beliefs. And it's a filter to what's real, not only what we see, but also how what we see works and how what we see is connected to other things that we see. But every belief that we have is old news. It's something that we use to make sense of the world, to make sense of the unknowable. How do we understand the vastness of the universe? How do we understand change? How do we understand? I got a stack of papers on my desk. It's not organized. It looks kind of like a mess. How do I make sense of that? I have to have some belief that they're connected somehow, and then I might organize them. Or I have a belief that they're not, and then I don't. Or I have a belief that they're useless, and I throw them away. Every belief is like a lens. So, a great practical example of this, aside from the papers and everything else, it's a good little anecdote. When I was little, I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8. I believe that come fall, I live in New England in America. So fall is a time when all the leaves, I've only learned recently, like other parts of the country and other countries don't experience this in the same way. So I guess it's unique here. So what happens during fall time is autumn is all of the leaves fall off the trees after changing color, and we all have to rake them up. We have to put them in piles, put them in a trash barrel or a bag and have them be taken away or bring them somewhere. So when I was little, I thought that the piles were literally made for me to play in, and that maple seeds, seeds of maple trees, they have little blades on them. And if you drop them, they spin. I called them propellers, were for me to play with. And my grandfather and I would carry these leaves down to what we called a gully. It's basically a big ditch. And I thought that was for me too. I just have fun and throw the leaves there, right? Later, I learned that taking care of one's lawn is actually the intention, not my entertainment. And that completely changed my view of leaves. It completely changed my view of maple seeds, and it completely changed my view of what my grandfather was doing. Now, I haven't really raked a yard or played in leaves since. So it completely altered what I saw was going on. When I changed my belief about what the leaves meant and the propellers meant and the gully meant, the entire meaning changed. The entire sense of what's real for me changed. And it changed again when my grandfather finally died. So tell me in the chat or in the comments, what are some beliefs that have changed for you over time? What are some things that you were stuck on and now you're not? Or some things that you once saw about the world that now is different? I have in my 20s, I had these experiences all the time where people would say something about, I don't know, what some kitchen utility meant, or what some word that I thought meant one thing and meant something totally different. We all have these experiences. I want us to become aware of how they naturally change, but also how some sense of newness causes them to change as well. I mean, the ancient cultures even had this stuff. The New Age religions today even have this stuff. At one point, it was thought that thunder and lightning must be angry gods, right? But now we have different beliefs. Different political groups have different beliefs. And even you and your parents might have had different beliefs. All of these beliefs explain why things are, but they also make you kind of blind to anything else outside of that belief system. Anyone who questions those common beliefs might be a heretic or blasphemous or just offensive. But ultimately, what's offensive is the conflict between the two. So beliefs literally control our filter. I want to drill that in because that's the most important thing. Beliefs control our filter of what's real. From those beliefs, we experience emotional responses, thoughts, and even changes in our confidence. So if you want more experiences that you're confident in, if you want more control over your confidence, then we need to master this art of navigating the belief system. And I've hinted at this a couple of times, but I'm going to say this explicitly. Conflict, the thing that I experienced when my childhood beliefs were questioned, or maybe the things that were experienced when the ancient cultures changed their religion, is the result of differences. So any difference in the way that we perceive the world, or any difference in the way that two beliefs come together, create conflict. It's the result of differences. But the intensity of that conflict, the inner conflict or the outer conflict, whatever it is, the intensity of it, the stress of it, of course, depends on where you start from. But for just one example, the stress of it is proportional to the amount of clarity and awareness we have over that difference, right? So when we look at beliefs and we think about making sense of chaos, it may seem daunting. It might seem like, oh, he's talking about all this esoteric, abstract stuff. I'm going to break it down for you really, really easily, because this is the only, like, if there's no other dynamic that you take from any of the other content, this is the one. And I've been doing personal development work for over a decade. Really, it all comes down to this stuff, right? I'll say again, we cannot completely eliminate chaos, but we can create a way to navigate that. And that's what we do inside of our energy economics platform. Now, the first question I have to ask before we really get into the solution, or rather another question, is, do you believe that you can confidently address chaos? If you don't believe that, then it's going to be very hard for you to be able to even do what we're going to suggest. If you don't believe that you have any control over your ability to navigate beliefs, you are going to have a really hard time with this piece. So I lost my place. I resized the window and everything moved. So hang on one sec. Got it. Okay. So I get that you haven't shifted any, maybe you haven't, figured this out yet, and you're here for a reason. But truthfully, if you don't have a core belief that you can make any change, you will find a reason to make what I'm about to share with you not important. If you do have a belief that things can change, even a little one, even if you believe, like, if you can hook into the belief that somewhere in the world somebody has figured this out, then it's available for you too, right? So we really want to have a sense, though, of how much our beliefs are costing us, how much our beliefs are causing us to shrink down and be less confident. So to get a sense of that, I'm going to give us a little quick test right now. To give us a sense of how much our current beliefs are costing us in proportion to the potential that we could live up to, pay attention. Just the next time you explain or justify or walk somebody through something, pay attention to how long you speak or how long you write, how many different pieces of data or explanations that you give, how much of that comes from fear of the past or fear of something not working, how many different concepts you introduce in that explanation, and most importantly, how much time, energy, and frustration is spent talking about the things that aren't working or the constraints, rather than the possibilities or the potential, or just asking a question that could clear things up for you. So while these responses are perfectly valid within your current set of beliefs, they really are nothing more than the conflict. Like, it's putting the conflict in front of you that comes up when there's an opportunity to step into a new belief. When there's even the small opportunity, right? If this is just a matter of, say, making something work, and you have to, so say, figure out how to make some app work, and you have to change around your whole schedule because something went wrong. Well, those are things, the time and energy that it's cost you to not be able to do what we're about to talk about. It's perfectly valid for you to a question that was asked here on Facebook. This question said, I'm curious about what I do not know that I do not know. What are ways to be multidimensional on any thought? Multidimensionality is another topic, but how to know what you don't know is one way to do it, is to see the contrast, right? So do that exercise I just talked about and see how much comes up, whether you speak it, type it, or it just comes up for you. See how much energy you have bottled up in trying to hold on to something that you're doing or some reason that you're doing it. That doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but confidence doesn't need to speak, right? The problem with beliefs, as I said, is they always have a blind spot. And that potential, that blind spot, that the beliefs won't let you see or accept, just like people, not accepting that the world was round or that it rotated around the sun. Those beliefs and the resistance to them is what's being lost. So, like we demonstrated above, there's not only one cost, there's multiple costs depending on what comes up for you, right? To justifying your current belief. And that cost may be worth it to you. It may not be worth it to you. But that same justification that you're making for whatever way that you're doing whatever you're doing prevents you, or obstructs you, I should say, or gets in the way of, or at the very least takes your energy from making sense of some new opportunity that might just be sitting there. And very likely a new belief system or a new way of doing things or a new approach, even if some similar thing has been done before, a new approach, tweaking a few things might be, and I don't know, everybody's different, right? Might be something that has potential for you. But those of us who are sort of stuck in our ways, who don't want to embody anything different, or those of us who are on the defense all of the time, are bottling up a bunch of that energy. So if you think that you need to refine any of your beliefs at all, if you think that you're wasting some of this energy by trying to hold on to something, justify something, explain something, or otherwise anything but neutral. If you're anything but neutral, there is there's a question I have for you. Do you think that it's worth changing, or at least looking at changing, the beliefs that you hold? If you do, put "that's me" in the chat, and I will reach out to you after this call, and we can talk about how that works. Now, we've just talked about beliefs. We've just talked about the confidence piece. Now, what about the chaos piece? I want to go into chaos a little bit because it dovetails perfectly with confidence, and understanding how we feel confident through our beliefs is one thing, but understanding what chaos is and how to manage it is a whole nother. So chaos is, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, complete disorder and confusion. If you're not seeing the link already between understanding our beliefs and complete disorder and confusion, our beliefs help us see order. They help us explain the unexplainable. They help us be able to make sense of things, right? There are beliefs that my grandmother told me at one point, gods were playing bowling in the clouds, and that's why thunder existed. And I believed her for a little while. Beliefs affect everything. And so chaos is simply the revealing of things that indicate to you that you have a belief that doesn't serve the situation, right? Chaos requires something else for it to make sense, or it's complete disorder. It requires order, right? If we have order, we can't have disorder. So some logic, reasoning, explanation, or justification is what a belief is. That's ultimately why we form a belief, is to make sense of the chaos. So whether you like it or not, your mind is forming beliefs all the time. Your ability to solve that chaos is fundamentally controlled by your beliefs. And some people take on a toxic belief. Some people take on beliefs that are harmful. I know at several points in my life, I took on a belief that there's absolutely no way for me to amount to anything because I couldn't even manage to be in integrity with my clients, or I couldn't even show up to work on time. It's very primal. It's very primitive, right? I can't. Punishment, therefore, I believe I suck. And that, honestly, if you're watching this and you are neurodivergent at all, I imagine there's some degree of that there too. The antidote to that is confidence. So even think about our current view of how rain, thunder, and lightning is created currently. It's electricity, right? Or it's a discharge in the air and the speed that The thunder moves through, or the sound moves through the air versus light, and all these things, they're just beliefs. What changes those beliefs, though? Talking about chaos, what changes beliefs? It's a seed of chaos. When a new scientific discovery is made, whether it was Copernicus noticing chaos in the stars and how things moved and proposing that we, in fact, do revolve around the sun, not the other way around, or when the idea of protons, neutrons, and electrons was completely broken apart by quantum mechanics, even recently, or the idea, when you moved out on your own from your parents' house, when you were maybe a young adult or a teenager, there's always this unexpected thing that pops up. It's a revealing of a new exploration that you could have. It's a revealing of some way that your current beliefs don't serve. And in science, that's embraced, and it usually prompts a new discovery. In our life, a lot of the time, it's turned inward, and it's not explored because we already have too much or what have you, even if there's potential there. So regardless of Copernicus's intention or my parents' intention or anything else, there in science, in areas that embody chaos, excuse me, there's one dominating question that I want everybody who's watching this to embrace. There's more here, or it's more of a comment, it's more of a statement. There's more here than I thought, and I'm open to change. That's what every scientist has embodied. That's what everybody who is good in chaos and has confidence embodies. And perhaps even add this in: I will figure out what the hell is going on here. And I use that a little bit tongue in cheek, but frustration, I will figure this out. Not it will be easy, not it will be effortless, not I'll figure it out today, but just the affirmation that you'll figure it out. So, in order to make sense of chaos, in order to be able to navigate that change, now that we understand what it is, we need to understand how to intentionally choose new beliefs. So in our life, everything is driven by motives, right? Beliefs and motives. We have this belief that tells us how the world's made up. We have a desire, and that desire we go for in some way. We have some intention, right? So what was your intention in coming to this call? What did you want to learn? What did you want to understand? If we don't choose our intentions, we don't ever challenge our beliefs, and we don't have any control. If we don't intentionally choose what we want to believe, we have no idea what's relevant. We just take whatever comes. Our mind gets overwhelmed, so we end up burning out and not being able to handle anything. And even our identity devolves into something that isn't confident. Said another way, probably more simply, your mind is forming beliefs all the time. And if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. So it's important that intention isn't just about what you do, it's about what you embody, how you embody it, and how that plays out. So let's go a little bit deeper. And then I'm going to bring somebody into this call who I will demonstrate some of the core principles of forming some confidence with. So I also hinted at this earlier, but this is very important. At any point in our life, we can either be cause or effect, right? Not having control over our chaos makes us effect. And if we're effect, we must be a victim of it. We have no control over it, right? We have to follow whatever comes. We have to deal with it. We react to it. We have no power, and we become less confident. That's the cycle that makes us less confident. But if we're the cause, we know we have control. We know we can adjust. We have some sense of how we're going to get a result, and we have an approach to finding some of that signal or some of that sense in the chaos. We have some beliefs that make sense of the noise as a result of having intentionality, so that we can be the cause over things. Things like even fulfilling hunger or warming our bodies have more meaning to them. It's not just a utility. It's not just something to do. If we're doing things just to do them without intentionality over our beliefs, without intentionality over our intentions at all, like we end up in that state of no confidence. So using the example of fulfilling hunger, or maybe even getting warm at the end of the day, there could be several intentions to fulfill each of these. And each of these intentions, they activate different beliefs, and they ultimately result in a different way of handling things, right? It could be to be full and relaxed, end up in a carb coma. Some people want that. Eating could be about alleviating hunger pains. I just don't want to be hungry anymore. It could be to fill an emotional void. It, you know, nervous eating, or eating to cope. It could be about experiencing a satisfying meal, being served, etc. Some of these intentions, they're conscious, to not be hungry or to fulfill a void, or rather to not be hungry to fulfill your hunger. But some are unconscious, like fulfilling an emotional void or whatever else. But in no case are we able to make sense of what we want to choose first from, say, a buffet, or what restaurant we want to go to, or what even to make for ourselves without an intention. So I told you I'd give you all a framework, and this is the framework I am going to be coaching one of our clients. I'm going to bring them into this live, and I'm going to bring them through this framework, and we're going to figure out why or where the work is to be done for them to create confidence in chaos. So here are 5 things that we need to keep in mind to do this. I've alluded to all of them, but we're going to be explicit about them now. So first, we want to be intentional. Intentions are a way to be and give you a sense of what to believe toward some end result, but ultimately you're embodying something as an intention. Am I going to be somebody who avoids his feelings by emotionally eating, or am I going to be somebody who only takes what I need, or am I going to be somebody who feels great all the time? It's about being, right? They give you a way to find signal in the noise, in the chaos. They give you a way to make sense of the chaos, and there are several ways to do this, but the only one that I caution against is making an intention about doing. This isn't about checking off items on a list. It's a way to embody yourself so that you can know what is relevant and what isn't. Doing is something a robot can do. Embodiment, not so much. From that place, we want to be discerning. So anything not in alignment with your intention that you've just set, it's not relevant. If chaos comes in, it's not relevant right now. If something that is stressful comes in that's going to take you off that intention, it's not relevant right now, right? If you engage with it, it's only going to deplete your energy and give you a lack of confidence. You're only going to end up wasting energy. That's where the chaos comes in. If you're not clear on your intention, which activates a set of beliefs, you're not going to be clear on what to not be open to. So most people, they'll just be open to everything. They get burnt out. They wonder why. So getting control over your relationship to your intention and what comes up is a required part of this. This extends from just intention setting, but it requires an intention. As a part of that, now we get into the doing, right? So we have this intention, we have this way we're going to be, we know what's relevant because we have an intention. We don't even need to think about what's relevant. It's just not the intention. We need to find a rhythm, because remember, our minds require distraction and they require focus. So what we've been talking about for a little while here is focus, right? But we need a way to turn away from that focus and navigate the chaos. So we need to create a rhythm. I often recommend the Pomodoro technique for this because it enables both intention setting and distractions in a regular rhythm. It also gives you an opportunity to change your intention, get a sense of what might have come up for you, what you might need to manage, how to manage it. In other words, the chaos. It allows you to be able to be focused for a time, unfocused for a time, focused for a time, unfocused for a time. And in doing that, you start to create some trust in your body that you may not even be consciously aware of, but you start to create some trust that enables you to know, hey, when chaos comes or when something unexpected comes, it's just going to go in this pile, and I'm going to go through this pile when I'm done or at some future date. And When you take that distraction break, then you go into distractions, set your new intention, and go on, right? This is about regulating. This is about a rhythm in the chaos so that you can find what's relevant to the chaos. And there's several other ways to do this to create a rhythm. If the Pomodoro technique doesn't work for you, there's several ways to implement it. We go over it in our membership, which there's a way to join here at the end. If you're already sold on it and you already want to know more, put I'm in the comments and I'll reach out to you. The last two things, these are really important because they provide you with a degree of sort of a fast track to confidence, right? So we have these beliefs, we have these levels of awareness, we have unconscious stuff, we have conscious stuff, and we've got chaos, right? There's always going to be some chaos. And how much, how do we engage with it in a way that builds confidence? We have to start small. We can't use confidence that we don't have. So we have to be pragmatic about this. And we have to say, well, what's something that I can do? What's something I do have control over? We have to ask those questions, starting with one block at a time of Pomodoro, ideally, and then another. Just start small. And what do I mean by starting small? I mean, if you're looking at some aspect of chaos or some aspect of what your intention is, or you have some thing that you want to engage with, and it feels like there's just too much coming at you, then pick something small, focus on that, and do this practice. You're not going to solve all the chaos, nor are you going to address everything. You only have one moment in time. To that end, we need to be hyper efficient. So this is the fifth thing: batch process your distractions. This sounds kind of weird and operational, but it's really simple. I'm focused. I have an intention, right? I have a thing I'm doing. I am focused on the thing. Bunch of stuff comes in. I'm going to do what I have to do. It either comes into my mind or comes in from the outside. Maybe somebody has a question. I'm going to do what I have to do to notate that. I'm going to put it in a pile. And then when I am ready, may not be after this one Pomodoro block, it may not be after the next one, it may not even be today. We need to make a new habit of this. But when I'm ready, I take the whole pile and I go through it. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because, and obviously, again, start small. You can't batch process everything. And some things do need urgent attention, or at least you believe they do. So why are we doing this? We're doing this because context switching is stressful, right? So we don't want to do it all the time throughout the day. We want to do it at once if we need to. We're doing it because when we choose to engage that list of distractions, we know that it's a bunch of stuff that may or may not be relevant. So it prompts us to take a bigger view and a bigger intention. We're doing it also because we want to stay focused. And we also want to trust that we are taking care of these things. So distractions, this is the point, distractions, chaos should not elicit reactions. If they do, chances are there's something that you need to regulate within yourself or your relationship to your intention or the chaos, right? So you need to find a way to document things that come up that are distractions that can be documented and batch process them. And doing all of these, right? Having an intention, being discerning, making a rhythm, starting small, and batch processing. These are all critically important, each one of them. If we don't do these things, then we'll find that there's added resistance, there's added frustration, there's added overwhelm, and we don't know how to manage. In order to make these techniques work, there's a set of tools and practices and lessons in our energy economics group. And if you want to build up this confidence that I'm describing in as little time as possible, we see some people do this in as little as 2 months, in some cases even 2 weeks. And maybe you want access to the family of tools that make this possible, or you want to enable these tools within your organization, just put I'm in the comments and I'll reach out to you. If you don't know or are having trouble figuring this out, put help in the comments and I'll reach out to you as well. So I want to show you guys, Kate, if you're there, I want to show you guys how to, Kate is the person I should be bringing on here. I'm seeing some activity on her screen. So I want to show you guys, okay, yep, I see her, good. I want to show you guys how to navigate this practice and this process using these principles with a live human being. So I am going to bring Kate Gladstone, who's somebody who I've been working with for the past few weeks, who has been beginning to embody intention setting and who has been doing an awesome job at showing up for herself and really challenging herself into this call. and we're gonna work on some figuring out of chaos. So,
Hello, I'm here. Thank you for having me on. As you see from my chats, I want to make sure I understand this. I don't understand a lot of it, and I'm very concerned
okay,
that it won't go far enough as far as I need it to be, no matter how good I might
yeah.
get.
So that's why you're here. So let's figure that out. Just so you know, you are live in the Facebook group, and
Yay.
we're going to be talking about how to make this work. So,
Mm-hmm.
first, like going back to what we talked about with beliefs, with intention setting. You're concerned that this won't work in the way that you need it to. Let's take off a smaller chunk of that. But what is your intention for showing up here in the hot seat? What do you want to clear
My
up?
intention for showing up here is to be or become the kind of person who won't be destructively swayed by chaos.
I like that. I like that summary.
Thank,
And that's
thank you.
big, right? So that's a I'm taking a minute because it's a big piece, and you can't be that person tomorrow, right? It's a
Right.
work in progress, right? So where is somewhere in your life? Do I want to do that first?
I'll give you an
Let's do it.
example. Okay,
Before
if
you
you
do
need
that,
an example,
let's I do, and we're going to go there. So let's say, okay, your intention is to be the kind of person that's not swayed by chaos, but we know chaos is unavoidable. So let's go one level closer to the ground here. Is this about not being swayed by chaos? Is this about being able to be discerning? Is this about being able to be effective? What's the outcome if you do that? What's the result if you're that
it's about not having a system crash, so to speak.
I know
Not
what you mean.
having a system crash when things come up that are higher than my very, very low threshold. And I've tried everything to be less crashable, and nothing I've tried has, I would say, either things I've tried have not worked or they have not worked enough. And as
Mhm.
far as I can tell, the things that have helped me most have been things you're telling me about, but they were things I was doing before, having discovered them out of desperation and having had to do them against obstacles and people who told me they were ridiculous, but they didn't help. Conversely, a lot of the things that I get told to do by people who guarantee that they'll help either don't help or don't help enough or are positively deleterious.
Totally. Can you see some of the beliefs that you have just in those sentences?
I wouldn't know which of my beliefs are incorrect. How if that's what you're
It's not
asking?
about that. Nope, no, that's not what I'm asking.
What are you
Good. I'm glad you.
asking? What are you asking me to
Can you?
see?
That what you just said was nothing but belief.
Wait, I don't understand what you are saying. Of course, I said because I believe it to be true. You don't want me to
Right.
say to believe it. I'm not going to pretend to believe it to be false.
No, I'm not doing that.
What?
What I am, you've already done it. You've already said, yeah, of course they're beliefs. So the next question is, can you see how these beliefs may create resistance to anything new?
What I see is that the beliefs arose after the events that led to the beliefs. I didn't believe that I would be crashed by chaos until it had happened enough times, let's say before I was about 4. I didn't
Right.
arrive with that belief. It's a belief I formed because of what happened. I can't pretend that those things didn't happen.
Of course. And because all that stuff from so long ago happened, and now you have these beliefs, they're your beliefs now. So we've been talking about this as a,
Yeah, in other words, if I don't have any evidence that causes me to change my premises, why would I check my premises if the evidence is for the premises I now have?
because your beliefs, that's just it. That's why you experience the crash. And what I want to hear your example, but this
Well,
belief part is
wait a minute. Okay, I have to stop you, Chris, right there, with all due respect, because you're providing so much of your time to help people, and that really means a lot to me, and I really respect that. I have had people say, well, if you just don't act on that belief, just assume it's not true,
it's not what I'm
you
saying.
won't get these. I thought that that was what you were saying. So can you help me distinguish between what I thought you were saying and what you really mean?
I can try.
Please
And it
do.
might be best to dive into the example with this. And I know that this is nuanced and sophisticated, so it may not be
Hmm.
something that you're going to digest here all at
I'll
once.
do my best.
I know you will. And I really like that about you. So if you don't have any evidence that supports a new belief, why would you change the belief? Let's use your example. What was the example you were going to give me?
Well, okay, I'm going to give, okay, the example I was going to give was that right before this meeting, I had been on the phone with Apple tech support trying to solve a problem on my iPad. It's a very minor problem, but I would like it solved, and I would like it solved before it actually interferes with something I might want to do. I had gotten on the phone at 12 o'clock, figuring that this would allow me to wrap up before 2:30 meeting. And I was on hold for 2 hours, 29 minutes, and they literally got to me right before I should have gotten on. Meanwhile, of
Uh-huh.
course, I was looking, through the DMs to find the link and try to have some conversation with you about it, but they kept saying, oh, hang on, we'll be back in just a minute. We'll be back in just a minute,
It's
but they
annoying.
weren't.
Yeah.
So, and not only that, but of course, other things had to happen during them, phone calls and so on, as well as the fact that here I'd allotted what should be enough time to get through, what I'm told, what they told me was a very routine thing that they could help me with quickly, but then they didn't. I also had to cope along the way with 2 times when I was transferred to whoever was the right person, but the transfer didn't work and it, left me hanging. They had my phone number, they didn't call me back, so I called again because I foresaw that after 2:30, because of this meeting and because of the rest of my day, which I already planned in a way to allow for batch processing. Thank you very much. In other words, the batch of things that I was supposed to do between 12 and 2:30 were basically very minor things culminating in things like check the link so you can get into the meeting. And things I have planned later on are bigger, and I may not have time to do those because in some instances the little things are steps towards the big things.
Absolutely.
And of
Yes.
course, as this happened, cars went by, someone was loud upstairs, little disruptions, all things that I could have handled maybe separately, but there's a certain amount of straws that will, crash the camel's back.
Back.
And
Yes. I love
I
that
don't
expression.
see, yeah. Now I don't seem able to change that limit. That limit might be different at different times. Obviously, if I'm well rested versus not. But one thing it did was cause me to miss my lunch. So I'm also very hungry because I simply didn't have the time to even so much and get anything. And I won't take the time now because believe me, once I've had at this point, nothing's going to make it worse, if you know what I mean.
I know what you
Or
mean.
very few things will make it worse. I mean, if a fire alarm went off outside, that might make it worse, especially if it was a fire alarm in conjunction with the doorbell ringing and the phone ringing at the same time.
Absolutely. Okay, got it. So we have some stuff that happened. We have some costs to you as a result of the stuff. Some of those costs are things like you missed your lunch. You may not have
Mm-hmm.
the time later to do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
You're energetically, there's been an energetic cost, right? You're energetically taxed. And we know that these costs can snowball into bigger things.
Yeah, especially
Cool.
because since I finally got through to the tech support and they were ready to deal with me, I had to say, right, in a hurry, well, I have this meeting that starts in 1 minute. Can you please call back at 4? And they said they will, but I know from my experience with Apple that they could end up calling anytime between 4 and 7
Yes.
when they call
Okay. And
back.
so you had a bunch of stuff that you intended to do. What was the
Mhm.
intention in terms of the way we do intentions embodiment? What was the
The
intention
intention was to
this
be,
morning? Not about
was
this call.
about this morning. My intention, as I recall, I don't even recall what my intention was, but I believe to be, to be honest and fulfill my commitment, something along that. I'm not going to
Got it.
stop and look it up now, but
I don't
that's
want you to.
basically what it is for me, really, every single day of my life, because I
It
don't
is, right?
always
And
remember.
so, right. And so what kept you on the phone with Apple, knowing that maybe not in the moment you knew, but this is the belief part. I'm getting to the from the other
They
direction.
said, hang on and we'll get to you. And I
Ah,
knew that, in other words, for one thing, there's an implied commitment. I'll hang on. In other words, if they hadn't gone back when they did, I would have felt very bad because I would have been forced to basically nope out and have no way to tell them.
yep.
I I don't like to be in a place where where my only choice is which commitment do I violate. As I explained to you, I grew up basically being forced into that situation over and over. It's important to
Right.
me to minimize that situation and to avoid it wherever possible, not to let people down
Yes.
who are working very hard to get me a solution, right?
Right.
But it's also important to me to be here for you and then to be here for other people. The reason I told them to get back to me at 4 is that I have someone to talk to at 5:30 and I'm hoping to be done then. And if I'm not, that won't be good. Now it's 3:30. I've been on here
Yes.
for an hour, which is longer than I expected this meeting to take. And I'm going to be talking, but if the phone rings, I
You got to
gave them
go.
the number
Got it.
for this one I have in my hand. And if I have to nope out, well, tough.
You have to. So where are you in your priority list? Like your lunch or having time or not no energetic
Well,
cost?
I'm
Where are you?
obviously at the top of it, as these are all things I do for my own end. In other words, I'm not doing this to be self sacrificing. I'm not doing this to be self effacing. What I do to be honest and keep my word and so on is a gain for me. I don't see it as a sacrifice of my interest. I see it as in my
Why does it
interest to
bother
do this.
you?
It bothers me because it reduces my effectiveness, because it affects how I look to others. I don't look to someone else, to the person I stood up, like someone who's keeping a commitment. I mean, I might tell them earlier or later, oh, I had to get off because I had 2 or 3 other calls coming in or whatever it was. But that doesn't mean they will always believe me. I try
Yes,
very
of
hard to
course.
give people benefit of the doubt because I know how tough it can be, but I also know that I don't believe in exploiting other people for my own ends.
Absolutely.
I don't, and it's exploitive of people to just blow them off when they're working hard to
Yes.
make things work for you.
Yes. So it reduces your effectiveness. Do you think it makes it harder for you to be honest when this stuff gets to you like this?
It doesn't, I don't think it does, in that it doesn't change my commitment to be honest. The only thing that makes me tempted to not be honest is when people stand me up. If someone promised to
Sure.
do something and didn't
But
do it. For instance, I
if
say
you're
this, my husband is doing our taxes. If I get off
Mhm.
the phone and I find that he decided to blow it off and spend the afternoon watching anime instead, which I don't think he did, but let's say he did, I would say, well, after this, do you think I'm going to get you something you want or need? If you say, pick me up something on Amazon that I need, am I really going to look for the prime shipment or the overnight shipment? Am I really going to do that? But what it does do is is being forced to break my commitments also reduces my opportunities. I might not get considered for jobs I could and should have done. People will think
What is
differently of me. People,
what is reducing your effectiveness do?
well, reducing my effectiveness is nothing I might want. It means I can't do things that I want and need and deserve to accomplish. If you don't,
Yes,
that's okay. And that should be pretty obvious.
it is. I need you to see it. So this trail of you're doing the stuff that you're doing for you, You had the schedule planned out. Your intention this morning was to be honest, essentially be honest and fulfill your commitments, paraphrased. And so when things happen that seem like chaos, they reduce your effectiveness and it disable, in some cases, you to be able to do the things that you want, need, or deserve to do. Is that accurate?
Exactly. And of
Great.
course,
So
there are consequences.
why didn't you get off the phone with Apple sooner, knowing that there would be a consequence to you and that
The
seemed like chaos?
reason I didn't was they kept getting back and saying they were getting the right person. Can you wait 1 minute more? If they had said, well, this is going to be 20 minutes and we know you have a meeting, because I told them, if they said, well, the guy you got to talk to is not going to be here till 4 or whatever,
Sure.
I would have said, okay, can we reschedule then? But if they say, oh, we're getting him, hang on 1 minute more, hang on, I am not going to pretend that they didn't make that promise. Because I like
No.
opportunities to fulfill my promises, I have to give others opportunities to fulfill theirs.
Yes. And what kind of person? Might be a tough question, and we might need to take this somewhere else. But this is the highlight of the. So when it comes to beliefs, there's some that serve you and some that don't, and sometimes they overlap, right? And you said,
I'm
"Hey,
more
why would I
concerned
change
with
my
whether the belief is true, but okay.
truth?" Well, what is truth? Have you ever seen the image of one guy looking at an E from one side and one guy looking at it from another side? One sees a line, another sees 3 dots.
Yeah, well, the truth is you have something that can be seen in different ways from different angles, but
Right.
it is of such a nature that it can be seen that way. If one of them said it's a bunny rabbit or a bunch of roses, he's probably way off in left field.
That's true. So there's a degree of probability of truth that makes the E not a
I
bunny
would say
rabbit, but also,
something, yeah, some things are true or not true. If I'm
yes,
sitting here and I'm chewing the top of this pen out of nervousness and I try to convince myself that it's a like organic energy bar, it's not going to be an
yeah.
organic energy
And
bar
that's not
just
what I
because
mean
I
by
really,
belief.
really think it is.
Yeah, no, that's not. I'm talking way deeper than that. So I'm looking at okay, what beliefs are true? The ones that you act from and act as if are true.
No,
So,
I wouldn't say that acting from something makes it true. After all, every tin pot dictator in the world is acting out of some
and
cockamamie
they're
belief that he thinks
complete
is true.
and they're completely confident in it. And that's my point. How can we
Yeah,
be
and
confident
I don't want,
despite
that's right.
chaos?
I am very, I've been through so much with people who think that what you need is to be just confident in what your own consciousness says is true. And look,
It's not all
no
I'm
way.
saying.
I do not go for that. I just
Nope,
say no to
that's
that.
not what I'm saying. So what I am looking, so here, the problem with this conversation of beliefs and perception and intentions and conflict and stress is when two things contradict or conflict, right? So if I'm talking to you and you're getting
Mhm.
frustrated with me, there's a conflict. If you're frustrated about something going on, there's a conflict. In this case, with the Apple rep, they kept saying, okay, wait 1 minute, wait 1 minute, wait 1 minute. And it subvertly is causing you a conflict during your day. So
Yeah.
there's somewhere where there's conflict that doesn't show up until later, and that's the cycle. What I want for you is to see that other belief that isn't the ideal belief of you being honest, because you are the most like detail oriented, intending to be honest, and usually are person that I have met.
Thank you.
That's not a problem. The problem is the contradiction. So look, you're in integrity, and I'll show you what I mean. So your intentions to be honest and be in integrity. You have intentions with yourself, you have intentions with others, you have intentions with commitments later today. Your energy's been a little zapped and you skip your lunch, and that broke some intentions with yourself. So
Hmm.
there's a point when honesty, yeah, it exists, but the antithesis of it also exists. And
So
it's the blind spot of I'm honest and I have honest stuff, but it blinds you to seeing where there's a discrepancy there. And so my
I know
question to
there
you is
is.
like,
I know that there is. I know that I
that's
fall
it.
short of what I am. How could I not know? I'm not some delusional person. I'm not one of these people who
Right.
are like,
So this isn't
they're
about
narcissists and
okay,
think everything about them
okay.
is
Mhm.
perfect. I am not
Nope.
that.
I know that. This isn't about that. This is about you are giving people, so to speak just to be blunt, your intention is always to be honest and to fulfill your commitments. You give people that same, your belief then is that others, your belief is in order for me to be honest and fulfill my commitments, I need to create a world where I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt because they must be being honest, right? Like when somebody says
There are
something like,
points where I stop giving people the benefit of the doubt.
and my
And,
precisely, and my point is the cost of you not doing that sooner is all of these costs. It's not out of your control.
Yeah, but I can't determine how soon is sooner. Sometimes
That's the work.
not giving them the benefit of the doubt has been wrong. Sometimes giving them more than I actually gave them today has been absolutely right. I don't know because I cannot read their minds. Don't you understand, Chris? I have to. I give people the benefit of the doubt until I can't. In other words, if someone asks you for $1 and you lend him $1 so he can take, the bus home that day or something, that's one thing. But if you then find out that he took the bus not to his home, but to your home and burgled your apartment, you probably would not give him another $1.
That's 100%
And I will
correct.
tell you, the reason that I gave them these chances was it wasn't just out of the blue. For the first 5 or 6 times, they actually had people come back and ask me questions. In other words, they'd say, wait a minute, and they'd have someone back in 30 seconds asking me like to do something and tell them what happened, whatever.
So were you aware of all of your other intentions and all your other things that you had to focus on during the day in that time? Or was it just kind of like bouncing between these two things?
I was as aware as I can humanly be. I don't know how.
And you're human.
Yes.
I'm not holding you to perfection.
I'm not claiming to be some omniscient, science fiction creation or some.
And you're not.
I'm not claiming to be that. I am aware. I mean, I had a list. It was not written, but it was sort of a mental list of what has to get done at various times during the next few hours and what it takes to get each of those things done. And I had warned the person before. I had said, look, if you're not back at 2:30 and you come back at 2:31, I'm hung up. Here's going to be why. I had warned them this is going to happen, yes. And they said they were trying. And to their credit, the lady came back at exactly 2:30 and wanted to know if I could continue. If the meeting had maybe been canceled. I had to tell her, well, no, we're on. I do have to know out of here.
Got it. So
and she accepted that.
Yes. So was the value of staying on the phone worth the cost of what you're going to experience?
I would say it was worth it because the different trade-offs were about equal. In other words, if this thing was pretty big to me because I'd invested not just one other person's time, but there were other people trying to help me. In other words, all the things I have to do are pretty big. I don't always know offhand. It's not as if I can always put things on some exact schedule or gradation, like this is 67% important, but this is only 66. I have to go with what the opportunity is. If the opportunities had changed, let's say a message had come through from you saying, okay, I'm terribly sorry, but my computer's not working again. I would then have said, well, I don't need to hang around for this. I need to deal with who is here. That would have been a little different. Let's say if both you and she, if she'd said we could talk now, and if what you'd said had been, oh, we're delayed and I won't be available, that would have made the decision clearer for me. Understand?
Absolutely. I do understand. So for
I'm
you,
saying that I'm always looking at what will be the return on investment, what will be the cost versus the benefit. My calculations are not always correct, but I don't evade needing to calculate.
I know that. I know that, and that's something that I find you've done work in, right? So
I've done a lot of. If I hadn't done work in this, I wouldn't be alive, probably.
Right. And so the piece of awareness that I can offer to you here in this short session, and I know that you need to go, and I'm not intending to have this go too much longer. I
do appreciate that. Thank you.
Is 2 things, just 2. 1, more awareness in the moment of stress, which is difficult. So how do we get there?
How am I ever not aware of stress? My dear
Not of
Chris.
stress. You misheard me. More
Oh,
awareness in the moment of stress. So you're on the phone with these guys and they're saying one more minute, one more minute, one more minute. We're going back and
yeah.
forth in Slack before this call. You have, you're trying to hop on, you're trying to navigate this decision, but it's chaotic in your brain. Like
Yeah,
that's
I
the
still
feeling of
haven't
chaos.
figured out how to do
So
comments without crashing this. That's why I've been putting these sentence fragments in
that's
chat.
totally makes sense. So you've got all this that feels like chaos. That's the moment when we need to remember our bigger intention. And to that, so that's one thing, is just in that moment, like zoom out, like take the few breaths. I haven't guided that on a group call yet, so next group call I'll guide a process that will
Oh,
help
now that would be good.
reset.
But the problem is this: whatever
Now,
strategy I intend to implement, if chaos happens at that moment, that removes my ability to do that strategy or even
and
to remember it.
do you believe that as you have more bandwidth that will have less of an effect?
I believe it sounds very likely. I'm accepting it as a hypothesis, which will be tested by action. That's all I can tell you or anyone.
Right. So the second piece is discernment. So there was a moment where you were on the phone, you called Apple, you had everything was going well at the beginning, and you knew that you
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in your mind, whether it was conscious or not, there was the opportunity for lunch, there was the energy that you had to preserve, there was this
Mm-hmm.
snowballing effect that might happen, and there was this later, you still all the opportunities for the day were still there. There was a moment when that started to kind of all those opportunities started to phase out because this call was taking over, and that's the energy of the chaos that you've described to me over time. So
Mm-hmm.
part one, intention. We're getting pretty good at intention. Part two, discernment. So in that moment when things started to pivot, was the moment when your day got completely screwed up and you needed to make some other decisions or not, right? So
I'm not sure
intention,
I
discernment.
understand you fully.
Okay.
I'm not sure I understand your sentence. I mean, I'm not sure what you're getting at here. The minute
What I'm
I
getting
knew
at
that
is there's a
things were,
moment you should have gotten off the call sooner.
but I never know that. I can't second guess myself. Any guess I make is as likely to be wrong as right. In other words, I whatever factors I try to take into account, since I don't know all the factors, all the people involved, there were days that were just like today when I was in very similar situations. And because of knowing things were going bad, I got off the phone quicker, let's say after only 10 minutes rather than 25 or whatever. And the problem was those were the days I should have gotten off later, because one of them was the time when they actually got the CEO of whatever place it was, not Apple, obviously, to talk with me. And he was very mad at being fetched and stood up. I hadn't known it was that they were actually getting the CEO. I thought, they're just getting some other tech guy. But in other words, how would I know? I would have to have telepathy. I would have to have powers beyond the
You just need more
human
bandwidth.
in order to
Just need
know
more bandwidth.
what other people were planning that would affect my plans.
You're the only factors I'm offering for consideration are the future cost of your
Yes.
current thing. So you got off and you knew that your
Know
energy was
that, but
taxed.
I've
You knew that you
tried
missed your
that other
lunch.
way. And that was typically what happens after I've been through an incident like this. The next time I'm in a similar situation, I don't stay on as long. I stay on half as long. But the problem is that can backfire. That can have a huge opportunity
Okay.
cost too.
So
In
what?
other words, I can't tell. I'm playing Russian roulette every single time. I can't
Right.
tell which
That's the chaos.
which pull of the trigger is going to be it, because the
Correct.
rules
That's the
change and the
chaos.
people change.
Yes.
Yes.
So we need some boundaries before we start. That's the discernment. It doesn't need to be in the moment, but like if I'm picking up the phone, every time I pick up the phone, I say to myself, okay, I have 10 minutes. That's what I
Well,
got.
that's what I say, and I normally say it to the other person also. The
Yep.
problem is it doesn't it doesn't always work as
I know.
it
It won't
needs
always
to
work.
work.
It's not perfect. It's not perfect.
I'm
But
not asking for it to be, yeah. The
my
problem is
interest is in buying you more bandwidth using energy that you stop wasting. That's what I'm
but the
interested
problem is this: when I do that, and don't think it's a thing I haven't done, it does not buy me more bandwidth, because the bandwidth has to get used in making all the
in. Right.
calculations.
There's many
The result of the
many steps.
time and energy invested in the calculations and in acting on them does not appreciably increase the percentage of
It won't.
successes.
But would you
So
be able to make those calculations more effectively if you had the more energy or more mental capacity? The
actually,
effect.
no, because when I make those calculations at times when I have a lot of capacity, it doesn't increase their effectiveness, which is about 2/3 in
It
every
doesn't.
situation.
But
That's
you have
right.
more capacity. You have relatively. So let's say you start at 100 and you make some calculations. You might have some percentage left over. But if you start at 20, the amount that you have left over is far less.
Yes, but I don't even start doing things until I'm at 100, if I can at all avoid it.
If you can avoid
When I
it. And
started that
so
call when I started that call with Apple, I timed it to be at a time when I had lots of energy and lots of similar things I could do with all that energy. In fact, I did some of them while I was on hold, checked some text messages, got to some people who are waiting for me. So I don't let it just be a total loss.
no, it won't be. And you already admitted the impact that that call has. So there's somewhere in here, like I don't see an obvious solution in retrospect. There's somewhere in here where if we follow this process, we know our intention, you know your intention, but there's some work to be done around discernment, which could be a daily intention to be more discerning rather than being honest. You know you're going to be honest. That's a bigger intention, but to be
Mm-hmm.
discerning. So there's work to be done. What that looks like, I don't want to give you because I can't make it fit for you. But I
Understood.
can tell you there's discernment work to be done around setting boundaries so that you don't sabotage your day. If we do that a
But
few
the
days in a
problem,
row, that's
yeah,
how it builds.
well, could okay, now is that and it does not work. For instance, if I set boundaries and like, okay, block all my calls for 6 hours, and it turns out that the call out of the blue that I needed to get but couldn't get because I didn't know the person was going to call me, and therefore their number could not be one I'd set to, go through the block. Or when it happens that when some other thing happened, the problem is I cannot predict the unpredictable. The things
Nope.
that sabotage me are necessarily the unpredictable.
Yep. But you can cut off your provision to things that take away your abilities. So
The problem is
predicting
I
the
can't,
unpredictables is
because that the I when I try to do that, the cost of doing that is as high as or higher than the cost of not doing that. Experience. I mean, I've tried it. Do you think I haven't been through all of this stuff and every time management approach known to Homo sapiens? You really think at my
I don't
age I have
I don't
not been
I don't
through this?
I don't think any one thing will work. It needs to be a system of things. I think that by
I
if we
do
can
think I haven't
successfully,
tried it systematically and in
then I suppose there's
combination.
no
Do you
answer.
think I
Then I don't
haven't
know why
been
you're
through
here.
this?
I don't know
Because
why
I
you're here
thought you
then.
might have an answer that had escaped
I
me.
do.
That's
I've
why.
given you several. I've given you several, but you've tried
Okay, the
everything and nothing
problem
works.
is if I hadn't tried them, I would say, Welly, I'm going to try this. But these are all things I have tried whose return on investment has not been sufficient, either severally or together.
I understand.
In
That's the
other words,
belief.
I was hoping you had something I hadn't heard, because you have a lot of ideas and a lot of strategies.
I do. I have ideas and strategies, and every single one you have a problem with.
It's not that I have a problem with it, it's that I've tried them, that maybe the strategies had a problem with me. But in other
Okay.
words, I've been through these. I
Hmm.
wanted them to work. I always wanted them to work, and I always gave everything a try. In fact, I
Got it.
always gave everything as long a try as they said. Typically,
Yep.
people said try for 3 weeks or try this for 6 weeks and you'll see it works. You didn't,
Yep.
give any specific time. In other words, if you tell me right now, Kate, try this for, the next 7 days and tell me how it goes, I would be more than glad to do so. If that's what you're
Yep.
telling
I hear you.
me. If you want to
I'm
tell
not going to tell you to do anything until we both agree that it could help and that you believe that it will
saying
show
there's a
enough results. So,
possibility it could help. I'm saying I
yep. And
believe
you
it could
also
help. I can't honestly say believe it will help, but I can say believe
totally.
it could help.
Yep. And that makes sense. And so in order for you to believe it, you need to see evidence of it. So the only kind of sticky point at this point for me, knowing that we've acknowledged that discernment's the work and that we may not get through it all today, and then that might be something that like that's as clear as we can get right now because everything's a
I'm
process.
willing
Okay.
to try. I'm willing to try this whole thing of don't do it unless you're sure you can do it and not suffer from it. The problem is you can be awfully sure of things and be awfully sure wrong.
That's not what I'm saying either. I'm not saying don't do it unless you're not going to suffer. I'm saying know your limit and then enforce it.
I know my limit. As the problem is, I'm not always in a place where I can enforce it. About 2/3 of the time, every day, no matter what I do, I'm in a place where I can enforce it, and I do. And those times are not the problem. The problem is the remaining 1/3.
Mm-hmm. And you just
The
gave me an
problem right
example.
now is knowing that I have exactly 6 minutes to get through this and to
Got
eat
it.
something so I don't pass out when someone calls me at 4, assuming they'll be prompt. If they're not
So
prompt, I will.
what I will do is I will demonstrate. Yes. So we've been doing a lot of talking. There's a lot of abstract concepts and specific ones. There's a lot of beliefs up in the air. We have identified discernment and specifically figuring out there's something in there, right? We have more work to do. I want to respect your needs and the so I want to get off this call, right? Have you go
Oh,
take care of yourself. And that is precisely what I mean by like you're still here instead of saying, look, I gotta go
I
to
mean,
5
I'm saying it's, I normally leave a meeting no later than 5 minutes before I have to go to whatever is the
Yeah.
next thing. If
So
you
go take
want to
care of
follow
yourself.
this up with a DM to me that I can read, that will
I
tell me, that's fine.
I will. Yes. I will.
Because
And
often it's
um
easier for me to have it in writing because I don't have to worry about
yes.
having notes. I don't have to make a recording and play it back. If you do this, and you can see I'm perfectly willing to be reamed out, told I lack discernment or anything else. As you say, that's what I'm here to fix. If you put
Yes.
down stuff for me to try, I will do my best to try. Now, I really must get going.
I want
So
you
I
to.
think
No.
that, and I think that will show you that I can certainly set a limit.
Mhm.
Okay. So I
All
will
right.
take my leave of you if you don't mind. Thank you very
I do
much.
not mind.
Thank
Have a
you.
good rest of your day. I'll be in
You
touch.
too.
Bye.
Goodbye.
All right, guys. So that is how hard it can be sometimes to even get through the beliefs, right? These things hold on pretty tight, and sometimes we can't even see through them because it happened 20 times in the past. There must not be any chance that it can happen again, especially if we failed before. Even though we know and we can hold as a truth that time expands and things change, this step one of beliefs is a big one. It also affects our intentions. If we cannot set a good intention that allows us to embody a different belief and addresses the parts where we're out of integrity, it'll be as good as reinforcing the same belief. So this week, for the next 7 days till next Thursday, I am offering a no cost assessment where we're not going to go deep into all the stuff like Kate and I just did, but this is just an assessment for us to get a sense of how able to shift your beliefs you are and how easy it would be for you. I'm doing this for only 5 people over the next week. So if you want this assessment, put I'm in the chat. It's going to be a Zoom call. You can have your camera on or not, and I'm going to send you something ahead of time. And on the call, we will talk about what we find. and it is a no-cost call. So if you're interested in such an assessment to see how easily you might be able to shift some of these beliefs so that you can make more sense out of chaos, put "I'm in the chat, and I will respond to you guys straight away. All right. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was helpful to see somebody acting out and talking out their beliefs and their intentions and the stuff that gets in the way. And also, you guys, be compassionate with yourselves. It doesn't sound like Kate was trying to start small. It sounded like she was trying to apply things that she's done to several circumstances, and that there needed to be enough proof to believe, right? We didn't get to the small step that she could take. But what's a small step that you can take? I'm offering this no-cost assessment. I'm offering a way to see through the chaos a bit. And I'm offering a way for you guys to know what your next piece of work is. If you're interested in that, put "I'm in the chat. Take care.